This is episode 30 of the Florida Sound Archive podcast. I'm Jeff Kaiser. It is April 24th, 2022. Actually, today's my wife's birthday, so I have to say happy birthday to my wife, Allison. Happy birthday. Hey, thanks, Diane. I have a musician on with me, a longtime musician for 3+ decades, singer, songwriter, producer, the awesome Diane Ward. Hi, Diane. Welcome in.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I am doing very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good.
Awesome. So just taking a look at your background, I assume that's your home studio there. So tell us about that. How many hours have you spent sitting right there?
A lot. I don't know if I could actually count them. It's where, especially during the pandemic, it's been like basically where I've just hung out. It's my space. So
yeah. How has that been for you? I know I talked to so many people clearly with my podcast, and it's seemed like it hit people differently, especially some of the musicians and artists who are very active. How has that impacted you?
it's been really tough. I'm super careful. I mean, I definitely kept to myself out of respect of other people and masked up and did all that stuff and still do all that stuff. Creatively, it kept me here, which was cool. So I honed in a lot of things that I had been putting off as far as, playing guitar and stuff. I got better at finger picking and that kind of stuff. But I kept writing throughout the whole pandemic and still feel like the pandemic's still going on. It's not over in my opinion. So I'm still acting very responsibly and careful in that. So
have you played any shows recently since?
No, that's been a thing. I mean, the pandemic hit and it really put a damper on my plans as what I had planned to do these past couple of years, 2.5 years, whatever. It made me focus on other things. So yeah, but I really look forward to playing live. I know a lot of my friends are out there, starting to get, geared up again to play, or they've already started, which is cool.
Yeah.
How about you? Have you been laying low?
The interesting is my podcast kind of started right before we knew what COVID was. It was It was January of 2022. And I remember the first guest that I had on post COVID, it was just so much unknown things of what was going on, and everything was shut down no matter where you lived at that point. And it was just like, well, what do you do?
Exactly. I had such a timestamp for that, and this will always stay with me. It's like you always know where you were when 9/11 happened. It was right before COVID really became quote unquote a thing, where it was my street, my little neighborhood here got hit by a tornado, and we were leveled. And I had a trip planned to Florida to go play the Luna Star Cafe, and I remember hanging out with my buddy Jack Shoddy, and musical partner, over at his house, and saying, "Wow, this pandemic thing," because I didn't have any electricity, so I was hanging out with him, and I was like, "This pandemic is really, really worrying me. I don't feel responsible asking people to come to a show, and put them in a position where they might be at risk, and myself included, all my band as well." So we literally took right there after that tornado hit, made the decision not to go down, and I haven't played a live show since.
Wow.
Yeah, right. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Now, speaking of Jack Shoddy, you have known him for a long time. He's been one of your close writing and recording partners. How did you meet?
Right. Well, let's see. After a few bands, and I just decided to go solo. I mean, truly, truly solo, and started doing some in the rounds. I had been doing a lot of stuff in South Beach, and just kind of feeling it out. I was offered an opportunity to go record at Criteria, and I needed a band, and Jack had I met him at a couple of in the rounds. He was playing with Nicole Yarling, which would be someone great to have on your show. She's amazing. But he we just started talking, and he was like, "Hey, if you're interested in having a guitar player, I'm available." And gave me his card, and we just connected from there. And he's been a really good friend and partner in crime in music and co-producer and all around great guy and support for all these years. So
Nice.
yeah.
It's great. We can kind of stick it out through the years and all the changes and things. Yeah, it's nice.
Well, the thing is that truly it's about relationship first, right? You gotta have
Right.
good friendship. That's before anything else. So
Yes.
that I feel super grateful for, that I get to have so many great relationships and music that have continued through the years. And him being, of course, right at the top. So
You mentioned Nicole Yarling, right? And she's been I think her primary instrument's violin. Is that right?
yeah, but you gotta hear her sing. Wow.
Yeah. She was in Nikki. Was it Nikki in the
Little Nicky and the Slicks?
Little Nicky and the Slicks? Yeah. You all had some gigs together back then, right?
We did? Yeah, we did. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of her. I fangirl on her so much. She's amazing.
Let's kind of go back a little bit even further than that. Back to your early years. Now, were you born and raised in South Florida?
Yeah, Jackson Memorial Hospital, same as my father. He was born in Jackson Memorial Hospital as well. So I have pretty deep roots in Florida, and it goes, the ocean area from the West Coast and the East Coast with my grandmothers. And one grandmother had a cottage in Lake Placid, which is in the middle of the state, where there's no breeze. And then my other grandmother had a fishing camp in Nokomis. So I spent a lot of time on the water all around the state when I was younger. And yeah.
So Miami at that time, what was about then versus now? How is it different, kind of going back and growing up at that time and seeing it kind of grow and evolve? Because it has changed a lot over the years.
Yeah, it's truly a different space. It truly has evolved to this mecca of cultural backgrounds and communities, which in a lot of ways is so cool. It's very, very busy. I mean, especially after being up here, I go down there and I'm like, wow, this place is just so incredibly populated. And as far as the scene and stuff like that, it was a very natural, organic kind of vibe, like let's say in the 90s, 80s and 90s. And then as soon as the 2000s hit and people discovered South Beach and discovered South Florida in general, the whole aesthetic and vibe of that area and South Florida in general, changed. And a lot of people enjoy going there for vacationing and partying and doing all that stuff. Culturally,
Sure.
as far as like music and stuff like that, it has really good pockets of a few styles of music now. But overall, I think there was more diversity in music in the 90s, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
I would agree. When you were growing up, did you have any siblings growing up?
Yeah, his sister. She's
Sister?
Yeah.
Older, younger?
Older sister, yeah. And she, as a matter of fact, her husband at the time would practice at my mom's house in Miami Lakes in the garage. And I would just sit by the drummer and just watch him do his thing. And I was just enamored. And I was still in junior high school. And was inspired me to play the drums. Let's get started in music.
So you started with the drums before guitar.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Drums and percussion was my main instrument. I'm schooled and fluent and orchestral stuff and playing the drums.
Because your sister was older, did she have any influence on your musical taste and maybe your parents as well growing up?
I think so. I think I was really exposed to being passionate about music with her, being a fan of music, not passionate because I was always passionate about music, but being a fan of music. She would lock herself in her room with her albums and her headphones and take those albums and just sit there and just get immersed in the covers and read every lyric and sing to it. And I would sit there and I was a little kid who's like, get out of my room, kind of stuff. But I I always thought about that, in later years. Like she was really, really, it piqued my interest because I love my sister and I always wanted her approval, of course, because I was little. And she was really in there, just really immersed, to Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and just the really cool kind of rock stuff. And yeah, so she, in that regard, she was super influential for me.
Do you
Piquing my
remember?
interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first rock poster or artist you had on your wall when you were growing up?
Oh my God. Well, see, that's where it's kind of weird for me.
Mm.
Because I had such a school background in orchestral stuff, I really gravitated towards not the rock thing, although I
Mm.
appreciated it, but I never really just kind of went there. I kind of went for like the Earth, Wind and Fire,
Okay.
the stuff that was more built, so to say, melodically assembled and put together. So like stuff like Earth, Wind and Fire and the stuff that had horns in it, like just totally, totally jazzed me. So
Yeah.
but as soon as I started working, got out of high school and started working for Specs Music, that changed everything. So I was the whole world in front of me, ended up buying. I mean, I totally went the opposite direction. So
Yeah. Did you know at that time that there was a whole like Miami soul funk scene and, kind of similar to Earth, Wind and Fire, like a Casey and the Sunshine Band in terms of
yeah,
like that magnitude of popularity and how many people were in his band? Like, did you know that existed at that time?
I did only through what was being rehearsed in my mom's garage. I mean, because that's what they were doing. They were doing that. That was their whole vibe. And so I knew it through that. But I really didn't. I always was behind or ahead, never like where it was happening. So I was always catching up or being ahead of it, which has been fun. But at the same time, I really truly wasn't aware to the point where I would, listen to it and just kind of like absorb, myself into it.
And then to think later on in your career, you would record at a studio like Criteria that
Yeah.
was popping out that type stuff. What was that? I know that's kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but what was that like for you being able to kind of record at a studio, which I'm sure some of your heroes growing up later on, Clapton, that type stuff. I'm
Yeah.
sure. What was that
Oh,
like?
well, again, another just a moment here for gratitude. It changed my life. Joel Levy believed in me and thought enough of me to say, "Di, I want you to come in here. I want you to record your record." He gave me, the engineer and the facility to basically do what I wanted to do. And I had already been producing my stuff already, my little 4-track, 8-track kind of stuff. And with another, my earlier band, Bootleg and the Wait, we were recording our stuff in my mom's garage. So I had a handle on producing and stuff like that. So I was felt super fortunate that someone believed in me to say, "Hey, come into this incredible spot of history and magic, and you can be a part of it too." And so it was really cool, man.
I
It was
bet.
really, really cool. So I was able to do that twice, and then Criteria was sold and things changed and stuff. So,
Sure.
but yeah, it was magical, intimidating. Uh, one of the highlights of my life, really.
Did you bump into anybody of note when you were recording there?
Oh my gosh, if I did, I probably wouldn't have known who they were, But yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. So was Bootleg the first band, like maybe the first serious band where you played out that you were in?
Yeah, yes. As a matter of fact, I played cover bands in high school. Fubar was our name in high school. So yeah, we did we did music in high school. But my first serious band where we played covers and we wrote music together was Bootleg. Um, and that happened when I was going to college in Miami-Dade, and I met Lou Lowy in college in a piano room. I was writing a song, and he came in and introduced himself, and that's where that relationship started with that band with Bootleg.
What do you remember about the first show you ever played?
Oh gosh, I was super young, and I was
Mm.
super super shy and introverted. I don't think I remember the first show because we did again a lot of cover stuff, parties, weddings, corporate things, but we also had this whole original thing that we had going on. So we would play places like the Jockey Pub. And I don't know if anybody's ever brought that up for you, but the Jockey Pub was this total dive in Davie. And it was there where the Goods, myself, Vesper Sparrow in the 80s with Bootleg and a whole plethora of other young bands that were just, cutting their teeth at a bar that made them play 5 sets for $75. And it was brutal, but man, what fun we had. Yeah, so that's what my first experience of that whole, like, going out and playing clubs and just get in original music anyway. That was fun.
Now, I've only gotten a chance to see some of the videos because, as so many other guests have kind of mentioned over different interviews, back in that time, unless someone came with a camcorder, those moments just were never captured. Just were not captured. So there is some video, thankfully, out there for us that were not there to see it. Talk about your look a little bit, because you had like a good look going on, and who were some of your influences, and and how did that all kind of come about?
There truly is no mystique there as far as like what image that I honestly, and this is going to go like a little deep, and it's not even fun. It's like I didn't really have an identity back then. I was just trying, to have something, and that was kind of a lot of the reasons why. The evolution of how things happens moving forward in music was me just trying to find an identity for myself, and I dress the part and fishnets and the little cut off shorts and high heels. I can't tell you how many times my heels went through the tree houses. I don't know if you remember that venue, the tree house. But my spikes would just go right through the floor, and I be pounding, making holes in the floor with my heels. Broke a heel once. So the look back then was what I thought I was supposed to do, and it was fun. Honestly, I was never super comfortable in it, but it seemed to work, I guess.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, and I do my research and stuff, but I think at that time period, the only other band that was in South Florida that had a female, like, I'm not talking like a cover band, was like the Screaming Sneakers. Were there other bands around that you were aware of that had female vocalists at that time that were playing with you as well?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Vesper Sparrow and Ruby Cadillac, and there was if I'm going that far back, those would be the two that come to my mind at the time. If I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize to people watching, but those two come to mind because we played the Jockey Pub together,
I gotcha. So,
and Vesper Sparrow was an all-girl band. They both were all-girl bands. So
okay.
Yeah. But fronted, I'm trying to think. There was Gypsy Queen back in the day. That was a little later, I think. At the Button South, we used to see them play a lot. They were amazing. It was an evolution of women coming to the forefront, and now they're all over the place, which is great. So,
what's one of the biggest differences for you playing with a more all-girl band versus having a co-ed band?
I don't know. I've never been in an all-girl band.
Just having a chance to see, an all-girl band play and interact, and what differences do you think would exist in those types of situations?
I would think, that's the hormones, and the way guys, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, whatever that book is. It's just the differences in how you approach a relationship. Women are more connective, and they're, imagine all of us being on our periods at the same time. Oh my God. What that would look like in a band situation, I have no idea. But as far as men, they're more like, don't sweat the small stuff, and you being a woman, like, totally raging, with growing hormones, like,
Yeah.
But so it's just like, I guess with anything, everybody's different. So
Sure, absolutely. I was wondering, I was curious about that, and so Bootleg was the first, and then after Bootleg, what came next for you?
Well, Bootleg was cool in that we again were a cover band making money and then doing original stuff too. We made money and we built our own little 8-track recording studio and had a whole little studio that we did ourselves. And we decided just to kind of go full time with the original stuff because it was something that we all wanted to do. We changed the name of the band to The Wait. and members came and left, but it was still mostly Lou and I driving the boat, and that was really when when original music for me started becoming a thing. I was really trying to find my own voice in it, and I was surrounded by so really great musicians. Like Lou is like a really excellent bass player, but an excellent writer. He's really great lyricist. And mostly I was doing music, and then Jamie was in the band, drummer, and then Jeff Fritz was in the band. He was writing music as well, and he was an incredible musician himself. We both had a camaraderie in drum corps, so he was very, very well versed in instrumental music and progressive rock, and so his vibe was super cool. So that was the next evolution of Bootleg. It kind of like transitioned into an all original project.
Were you playing some of the same venues, or did you feel like at that point it was time to kind of expand beyond that? Maybe there were some other venues that you can get a chance to play that time around, but then this new band opened up different opportunities for you.
We just shifted gears. We're like, let's just be original band and just concentrate on that. So that in itself comes with different venues, like again, like the Button South Treehouse, opening up for people, and that kind of thing. So yeah. That's where it started.
Who were some other artists and bands you were opening up for at that time?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Really
well, just thinking about your time playing down there, was there any opportunity where a very well-known national artist came to town that you did get a chance to kind of open up for, and that was really important for you and a good opportunity to get some more exposure?
Back then, I honestly don't think so. I think it was more over a start. For me, a starting point to seeing what was possible. And what was cool about that band is that we got connected with Jerry Murata and Babette Kluka, and they brought us in to record us. And that was a cool thing that happened with that band. It came towards the end of the project when things just kind of got really tough for me, for a lot of different reasons, but that never really took off or did anything, mostly because of me, because I chose to take a different direction. I started playing acoustic guitar and started doing a whole different type of, and finding my own voice in my writing. So that and a lot of other things were coming up for me that kind of like, it was kind of the end when we started doing the whole Jerry Murata thing. And then I just kind of like left the band, and
gotcha.
That was it. Yeah.
I think, and keep me honest here, but I think the first time I think any of your music was released, like on CD or really any format for that matter, was Live at the Square. It was a compilation of Washington Square's performances. Yeah. Was that just from your recollection? Like, do you have any other memory of anything prior to that was actually released in a physical format?
Only like handmade, like the weight stuff. We packaged some of that in like I remember neon cassette tapes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I know. But before that, I because after I moved on from the weight, that's when I started playing out a lot of like open mics and just trying to get better at playing acoustic guitar. Being a drummer, if you saw my first guitar, there's like a big hole in it, like Willie Nelson hole, because I just played it like a drum,
Yeah.
But I was out there just basically just trying to learn and grow and evolve into something that I was really starting to connect with, which was my own voice with an instrument, and moving in that and growing with that. So to answer your question the long way around, the reason why the Square thing came up was just that I was playing with different people, and I ended up hooking up with Sturgis Nikitas, which is this amazing guitar player, tattoos and just blues. I mean, the guy was just this incredible rock guitarist and a little intimidating. He was just so great. but we ended up starting playing together. And I had my own acoustic guitar, and he got his acoustic guitar. And I was like, started just playing acoustic guitar. Like he was amazing. So that's how that came about. And then we ended up forming a band together, and which only lasted a year. But that was Voidville, which was super popular.
Was that a playoff of vaudeville?
Well, that was Voidville, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
don't. But was it a playoff of vaudeville?
Yeah,
I don't
the
know.
name.
I think a friend of Sturge's made the name up, and it just kind of stuck.
Okay. Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
I got, I know, no, I know it was a while ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and just thinking about Washington Square. So how did you enjoy playing at that venue?
Well, I got to say, when I first again started doing the acoustic stuff, I went to South Beach, and I ended up staying there like 4 to 5 nights a week, just hanging out, either listening to music and just immersing myself in the scene that started to implode. And I remember, as a matter of fact, the transition was that the Wait played the Delano Hotel, Club Beirut, the godfather of songwriting, Dennis Britt, would bring in all the bands into this basement of this hotel that had not been renovated yet, the Delano. And he would put us on stage. He says, "I only want you to do 20 minutes, and I want you to play your best 4 songs. And you're going to do 3 sets a night. And if you got to play those best 4 songs again, that's what I want you to do. I want you to concentrate on your craft. I want you to get in there and just do the best show you possibly can, no matter what. Even if you got to repeat your material, just go do it." And he was probably the biggest cheerleader and the biggest kind of like supporter of original music back then. He took that gig super serious, and responsible for a lot of people, the Mavericks, of coming through there, the Mavericks, and the upstart of a lot of great bands in the Wait. We were in there doing our thing there. And I remember him being like a huge influence for me, because he was a great songwriter, great singer, and just a total character, man. It's just the coolest dude. So that's kind of got me into the whole South Beach scene and being in that Delano. But then it started spreading out to the further south, like the Washington Square opened up, and there was the Talk House opened up, which was later, but Roses, Cactus Cantina. There was a record store there that had the open mic thing, and there was just a ton of venues that it started really becoming a scene for a lot of us, and doing music like 7 nights a week, with multiple acts. It's like crazy. So that's when the Wait when I left the Wait and started doing my own thing, just trying to figure out what the heck I wanted. I started hanging around South Beach, open mics, writing with my friend Jim Bauman from Specs Music, and we would go out and do little open mics and stuff like that with our acoustic guitars. I try to keep up. And that's how it all started. And that's how I started meeting people and honing my craft and working on my songwriting, and the Live at the Square, to come full circle. Sorry for the long.
No, it's perfect.
But coming back to the Live at the Square, the Square was amazing, because they would host like 5 bands a night. The Square was like a marathon of like 100 acts, and they recorded it. Doc Wiley and his the man behind the curtain up there doing his thing, and probably the coolest. And looking back, you think, wow, we had something super special. At the time, we just took it for granted. It was our home, it was our living room. We just hung out there and played music and hung out with people. But so that was the first recording, I think, that actually was released before I started doing my own stuff.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, because you mentioned about doing the acoustic stuff with Jim, there's a full video on YouTube of the Informals.
Yeah.
At Y&T Records. And, a lot of times you come across some of that stuff and you're like, oh, okay, it's a couple songs, but it's like the entire performance. I mean, back in 1990.
Yeah.
Wow. So what are your memories of that performance, and just record shops at that time too? Y&T was such a haven for people who love the music back then. So what are your memories of that?
My memories are all super great. And again, super grateful, because, let's just face it, no one does anything alone, and you need cheerleaders and you need people to lift you up. And Lowe was one of those people back in the day. He had that record store, and there was a bunch of record stores, Uncle Sam's and stuff like that, but really supported the local scene, and WVUM, the radio station, the college station, the University of Miami, and up in Fort Lauderdale. The kids up there were doing some great stuff in high school with their radio station. Y&T, again, I was just trying to keep up. I sucked so bad, and I was just trying to keep up with my friends and not totally fall apart playing and trying to sing at the same time. But we were just so embraced and encouraged to play and supported and loved, and big fans of music, people buying records, and when records are just so cool, pick up a record, oh my God, it was a great time in music for South Florida, a really, really great time. Again, a lot of people took it for granted. You look back, hindsight is like, we had it super good.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
And, just thinking about that big boom at that time too, and as the years kind of went on, there seemed like to be a lot of labels really interested in signing a lot of South Florida bands. What do you remember of that period? And were there scouts coming to some of your shows that you kind of caught wind of? What was your memory of that?
Let's see. Scouts. I guess there was always scouts coming. Well, South Beach is if you were an A&R back in those days, they would just come down because they wanted to party. Let's face it, South Beach is such a desirable place. And they were given, back in those days, they were given a lot of money just to go out and hang out and throw money at people and say, here, I'm going to try to do something with you. Da, 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 da. So there was a lot of activity with the labels back then, people coming down and checking out bands and stuff. And in my timeline, there was always interest. With the weight, there was interest with when I started doing solo stuff. The in between, when I got into Voidville, when I started doing the solo stuff, I did a song called "The Gift" for charity. I recorded it at Rat Bastard's place on South Beach, or in South Beach, on Lincoln Road, and during a tropical storm, brought a bunch of people in there, and we did that project, and that was kind of like a little send off to Voidville starting, and Voidville had some interest, Island Records and a couple of other folks. So there's always, and then that's when the Mavericks started hitting, Mary Carlson, Marilyn Manson, Saigon Kick, and the Holy Terrors were just raging. They were getting tons of interest, and the Goods, doing great stuff. There was a lot of activity with A&R people and label interest in a lot of the bands here. So
right, yeah. You mentioned Rat Bastard, Frank Filestra. What was it like recording with him? And also maybe talk about Rat Opera as well, because you were involved with that too.
Yeah, that was way later, but
way later.
It's all connected though, because
all connected. Yeah,
it's all super connected, because to know Rat is to love him, and is to just kind of like understand of who he was, another person in the community in his own way. And Churchill's, by the way, being a part of Rat Bastard and that whole punk scene, and noising, but and Churchill's Dave Daniels being a huge advocate of live music as well. I forgot to say and talk about him, but Rat Bastard was another person who in his own way would lift people up and support them, and encourage them to learn their craft and get out and not suck. I don't know how to say it any better, but that's really truly who he is. You just get out there, do your thing, and don't suck. So recording with him was cool. He stayed awake, I'm just saying, and I had invited like 50 people to be in this small little studio in South Beach, and he was there, seeing it through the whole way, and I was very grateful for that. He did that all free, and we raised a good amount of money for the Riccardia Children's Program, which was helped kids who were affected or infected with HIV or AIDS at the time. So
Yeah.
Yeah, got a heart of gold, that one.
What kind of?
Oh, so yeah,
Yeah.
the rad bastard thing. Sorry, what came way later is because he's such an icon in the scene.
Yeah.
He's such a character. My friends Brian Franklin and Rob Elba, I'm sure Rob told you on his show with you. They wrote an opera about this guy because he's so colorful. He's such a character, and they asked me to be a part of it, which of course I've never acted or done anything like that in my life, and it was really fun and a hoot. And yeah, I had two roles. I played one of Rat's girlfriends and Rat's mother, so it was great.
That's quite the dual role.
Yeah, well, they're putting on the wig and the moo to be the mom, and then the girlfriend, just me, whatever.
How did you tap in and prepare for that character? Did you know his mother and stuff?
No. Okay. I tried to do an Italian. I tried to do a New York accent, an Italian New York accent, but everyone just laughed at me because it just basically came off as like an old Jewish mother accent. But I don't. I'm sure her watching the show, she probably was laughing because it was really silly fun.
But what was his reaction when he first saw it?
Rad kind of keeps that kind of stuff close to his heart. He keeps it here, but I can't imagine him not being freaking honored and just grateful for a whole community of people rallying and doing something like that in his name. So. They did a great job with that. They did the music is incredible. The lyrics are ridiculous, and and it was tough. It was tough to do that because if you come into that Rat opera and you don't know who Rat is, it has to translate, and they did a great job with that. So, yeah.
It was quite the jump from the early years with Rat to, I'm sure thinking about going back that far, you probably didn't forecast that there would be an opera at some point about his life.
No, he was just another part of the scene, this character in the scene that was a one of, two handfuls of people that were supportive and advocates and lifted other musicians up in support, doing what they could do for the scene, and a lot of people benefited from that, musically and spiritually. So,
what other studios do you remember also recording at, or perhaps even other producers, engineers you had a chance to work with in your early beginnings?
Basically, Jerry Murata was amazing, and going into Criteria, I was kind of producing it myself. It wasn't until really. Like the third album with Jack and I just started co-producing, things heavily, just really getting in and just really partnering up with collaboration. So producing wise, that's pretty much it. I don't think I've ever worked with other producers. I would like to, but I'm trying to think. That's pretty much it.
Were you all just self-taught, or did you mentor with someone? Did you take any classes? Like, how did you learn how to do a lot of this?
Self-taught. Back in the day for me, again, you can't do it alone. Like high school, I was writing when I was teaching drums. I started teaching drums when I was in 12th grade, 11th grade. And so I had students and did all that stuff. And then there's where I taught and where I learned lessons. They had a recording studio, and Jeff Caldwell and David Bauer, they had a studio, and they said, come and record some of your original songs. So I had 3 songs that I wrote, and it was my first songs I think I wrote in high school. Like, I think it was my senior year. Was it senior or junior year? Anyway, so they came in. There's like, come do this, and they were super gentle with me because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So they actually were responsible for the parts and all that stuff. But it gave me my first insight into what being in a studio looked like, and what the process was. You set up the mics, you get the right sounds, and you play the parts, or and you play the parts in support of the song and the vocal. And they kind of started that with me early because they were really, really great musicians and teachers. So that kind of got me kind of like tripping in that direction.
Yeah. And back when, and even almost, I know your sound has evolved a bit over the years, right? So, I mean, which is, normal evolution, I suppose. So we all grow and all that. So over the years, when fans have come out and see you play and have a chance to chat with you, what are their impressions of you, and any comparisons that they may have shared over the years?
Any comparisons of me to other artists?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, just as human nature, we have a need to compartmentalize and put people and label them, because you have to identify with it so you can pull it out and you can you can try and relate and understand it to whatever you got going on. So yeah, of course. I mean, the obvious ones are like Melissa Etheridge and a few Mary Chapin Carpenters, which is super weird to me because it's like, who I love, by the way, but it's just like vocally, I'll say vocally, it's been a constant of Melissa Etheridge and some Katie Lang comparisons, some Cher comparisons. Trying to think. Yeah, those are like the three biggies that come up for me. Songwriting style, that would be the more like the earlier stuff would be like Mary Chapin Carpenter kind of like alignment, and I'm trying to think of who else they aligned me with back in the day. Pretenders, when I was with Voidville, was a big Pretenders and kind of alignment, which I loved.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan.
Sure, of course. What's one of the nicest things that a fan has ever shared with you that you really remember and hold dear?
I probably would have to keep that private because it was something super, super, super personal. So, yeah.
And your music itself is pretty personal.
Yeah, I mean, that comes with the evolution of finding yourself in your music. And this is one of the, I didn't know why I was doing it at the time, but the reasons why the transition from the weight to kind of floundering, trying to figure out how to play guitar and sing and write songs or start to write lyrics that I could actually sit in and actually, because what I've come to find is if the other person listening to your music is not relating to you, or you're not living it or understanding it when you're singing it, or being able to relay it in a way that people can it resonates with people, it just falls flat. So there's a combination of that, the story, and the combination of who you are and telling the story. Right. That is, I had to come to find out from my own, and that just takes time. So for me, what was the question again? Shoot, I lost my question.
we were talking about just the personal vibe of your music, and it can get deep into that, because because I think, especially for someone like yourself who has released, I think your six albums so far, right? Is it 6? Yeah. It's a lot of music to cover.
Okay.
So, it could be very personal. And just listening to some of your music, though, it sounds like it comes from that place. But I'm just curious, because every songwriter is different in their own way. So are you writing from a real personal view, or is this, do you incorporate other experiences and people around you, and maybe things that you appreciate? Maybe you went to a place and you love the culture or whatever, and you incorporate it into a song. Like, how much of that influences your music and songwriting too?
All of it. As a writer, I mean, it's our job to absorb it all, and process it, and then just kind of like reshape it into 3 minutes. So yeah, all of that is important. And a lot of it has to do with kind of knowing yourself and trying to have a good relationship with yourself, where you feel like safe enough to be able to express yourself and not feel, like you're going to get railed for it, and just have the balls of the guts to go out there and just put it all on the line. And it was definitely an evolution for me just as a human being, growing and not being that shy introvert, which I still am, but at the same time, I've grown much farther past that. And function in my creativity and as in life. So yeah, I'm in there a lot. Now there's other songwriters that come from just the pop standpoint, where you just want to write a good song and you can just separate yourself from that and bring your own influences into it, and bring your own experiences into it, but at the same time, just write a great song about this, about that, about that. But I always have a tendency to bring a little bit of myself into it, and it's just kind of been my thing. And now I'm kind of learning to be different in that, which has a lot to do with my move up here, and starting to co-write, and so I've come into another phase of my evolution.
Is it normal for you to also write for other artists?
After these six albums, have come and gone, I was approached by a really good friend of mine back in the day. We used to do songwriters in the round, and she had a band in South Florida called Big, and a couple of other things too, but I remember Big mostly. They were Jody Marsh. She's an incredible songwriter and singer and human being. She reconnected with me. She was starting a small publishing company up here in Nashville, and she was like, "Hey Dee, what do you think about working with me and doing some co-writes and stuff like that?" I was like, "Yeah," and it was a little intimidating, honestly, to do it, but I said yes anyway, because I had, it was just something telling me this is something that would really, really, really work for you. I said, I don't really know how to do it. I've done it a couple times, but I don't, when you do it professionally, what does that look like? To me, it seems like super intimidating. And again, the introvert comes out of me, and the fear and all that crap. So she was like, "Hey, listen, it's just like doing it yourself, but you got another person in the room. You just talk, hang out, see what you want to write about. You could write for them, you could write for you could write for another artist, you could write for pitch, if you want to pitch, for soundtracks and stuff like that. You can do whatever you want. And it's not really that much different than when you're writing with yourself, other than there's someone else in the room and you only have a certain amount of time. But anyway, but that changed everything for me. I fell in love with music again, or not music again, but I fell in love with writing again. Because it truly is a different process. It truly is in its own a craft. And I've come to super appreciate it, and really, really appreciate it, and really love the idea of 2 people or 3 people getting in the room and working a song out together. It's just really nothing like it. It's exceptional.
For me, it's kind of like you're working on a project, and when both people coming together, and then when it's all said and done, it's like, we did this. We did this.
Yeah, right. And there's a certain amount of trust involved. There's a certain amount of letting go, and to literally keeping your ego at the door, as they say in We Are the World. They keep your ego at the door. At the same time, when to know when to have ego, where you say, I really feel strongly about this. But always keeping in mind what's important, which is the song and creating a song. That is what your focus should always be, making a great song, and all that other stuff is just bullshit. So.
I have to ask you, since you brought up We Are the World, out of every person, obviously, top notch, every performer on that song, who owned it? Which performer on that song, in your opinion, owned it the most?
Oh, the We Are the World?
Yeah.
Oh my God, who owned it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You're going to make me go back to that video in my head. This is where you need to do the edit and put it in, like, who owned it? I don't know, man. I don't know. That was that. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think owned that?
I would have to say either Cyndi Lauper or Steve Perry.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Yeah, I would say those 2. I mean, I think Kenny Rogers is 3rd for me. I know that MJ and Ray Charles and Stevie and Springsteen had much longer parts, but for the little time that they had, those 3 just, to me, just most memorable. So I was curious which one.
I don't know. I thought Dylan just halfway singing, just kind of like barely moving his mouth. That was kind of intriguing to me.
He just looked like he didn't want to be there.
Right, I know. Dude, Right. Maybe he did. Maybe he was there, but he wasn't there.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
So,
kind of speaking of people who, because I know obviously Dylan is one of the most well known. I think also, in terms of like that genre of like that folk rock kind of music,
mhm.
then you have some other artists who are well known. Harry Nilsson comes to mind because Fred Neil, who was born in St. Pete, moved out to New York for a while, but then he came back, I think, to Coconut Grove and kind of lived out the rest of his life and stuff like that. You were on a compilation about, I think really encompassing a lot of his songwriting. For those that don't know Fred Neil, Everybody's Talking,
Yeah.
that was a hit for Harry Nilsson.
Mhm.
Was he an influence on you, Fred Neil? And what was that like for you being able to contribute music that he had wrote to that compilation that Y&T put out, by the way?
Yeah. Again, Richie Lowe. Amazing. Yeah. I was not. I didn't know Neil's music until I was asked to do that. Then I immersed myself. And thankfully, I was asked to do it. So now I know. Now I have another. And now I'm a fan of someone else, and their writing. It was a joy to be asked to be a part of that. Honestly, and what a great compilation! And I'm trying to remember. That was done. Oh, where was that done? In Miami Beach Recording Studios with Luch, and with Matt Sabatella and Jack, of course, and the a whole bunch of people coming in to contribute the vocals on that. Was fun. Yeah, that was great. That was really unique for me. That was different. I enjoyed that very much.
I bet. I think because you're known for obviously more original music, but to contribute a cover song in that way,
Yeah.
I think is pretty neat. And I think you also did another tribute album in a way for Jim Worster,
Hmm.
who I think you've worked with for quite a long time. So what are your memories of working with him and being a
Oh,
part of that? Because that compilation featured like Charlie Pickett. I think Rob Alba had a song on that. So what are your memories of that too?
Jim is a very dear friend. We are collaborating now, doing co-writing together, and it's been magical for me. It's been a joy because number one, he's a great guy. And every one of those sessions, it's just I feel incredibly grateful to have that moment with someone that is just so cool and such a great person and a good guy and super talented. Remember him back in Black Janet days?
Yeah.
He was a huge part of the scene. And had Amy. It was in the band at the time, and Rose from Amy Baxter was co-singing in that band, and as well as Rose Gargiulo, who was in Vesper Sparrow, was in that band, Black Janet. Um, so we have a long history together too, Jim Worcester and I. So anytime he asks me to do something or wants me to do something, I'm like, yeah, okay, love to.
How do you collaborate now? Is it mostly a lot of just virtual remote type, you record, I record? Like, how are you doing it now, considering that you live out in Nashville?
Um, well, when Jody asked me, Jody started bringing me up to do co-writes in Nashville. That's how I got introduced to Nashville, and she would line me up with a bunch of writers, and that's what really got me on the fast track. So we would get into a room, and then I would meet somebody literally within the first 5 minutes, have a conversation. First 15 minutes, all about talking and kind of getting to know each other, feeling the waters, and then just like, okay, let's go talk about our deepest, darkest. What are we going to write about today? So that was the whole co-writing thing. That's how I got started with her. And I kept coming up to Nashville to do that. And sorry, what was the question again? So why was I going back to her for some reason?
Yeah, just because you mentioned you were still working with Jim
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
just
So
the whole recording because he's down in Florida. How was
right,
that
right,
all?
right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So, well, being up here doing it in person was really, really cool. But then COVID hit, so we had to get creative. Everyone learned how to use Zoom, like we're doing now, and all the tools that the internet has been able to provide us to be able to kind of have some sort of connection via technology to be able to write. So I started writing via Zoom during COVID, and Jim has been a mainstay for me. Like I write with him, a couple times a month. And Karen Feldner, who was in Natural Causes, who a trophy wife, and a great singer-songwriter. She and I co-write via the internet, and along with a lot of other folks as well, including a couple of folks that are the the NSAI South Florida chapter. I write with them via Zoom. So I look forward to going back into the rooms again. Honestly, I really love the connection, but I also love the opportunity to be able to not be in a different state and be able to write with somebody that way too as well. So,
that's true. You do save a little on travel and all that. So
yeah. But if it hadn't been for Jody, like to throw me in rooms with people that I had never met and really, that started me in a whole different path and afforded me the opportunity to learn how to write songs with people. And then I just kind of like went back to my friends. I'm, hey, come on, let's start writing together. I'd been writing with Brian Franklin, for a couple of times or a few times back in the day, which is always fun. But I never really had that experience. So now that Zoom is here, I can pick up the phone, say, let's have a session, and connect with my friends down south, and we write. It's fun.
What was it about Nashville? Because obviously there's a lot of other places that are music capitals in many ways, but I know Nashville has its history, of course, but did you go there before and just kind of enjoy and like it, or what was it about Nashville that lured you there?
Well, when Joe asked me to come on board with her small little publishing company, a little co-publishing deal she gave me, and she started bringing me up and lining me up with other writers, and that's what got me like coming up to this town that just completely I went because you can't go to Publix and not be in the same aisle with someone who's a guitar player or an engineer or a sound guy or a lighting dude or a manager that's stocking his bus that's outside for a major label artist. It's like this town is just so inundated with creativity and in music. It's hard not to come up here and being someone who loves music as much as I do and loves to be creative in music, not to be completely just infatuated or just immerse yourself in the identity of this place. And so it's just hard not to come up here and not be just really just taken with it. So I just fell in love with it. I love the idea of going down the street and Music Row and seeing these little houses, these old Nashville houses with a little sign up front. Hey, so-and-so just got a platinum single, congratulations, So and these little, and the studios are everywhere. And it's just like, it's hard not just to be taken with the concept and the idea of a supported community of a lot of musicians and people.
Right.
And so the energy just kind of, you get elevated in that, and you're inspired. It's inspiring. For me, it's inspiring. Some people think it intimidates and they can't deal, but for me, it's inspiring.
Have you been up to the Third Man Studios before that Jack White owns?
Yeah.
What was that like?
That's great. It was one of my first visits here. I did it was a showcase for a songwriter showcase for publishers, and you just walk in, you just kind of like, oh, Yeah, it's cool.
And I think it's a couple hours away, but have you gotten a chance to go to Memphis at all?
No, that's on the list, but I haven't gone. I'd like to go. A lot of my friends have gone, and it's I'd love to do that. I haven't done that yet though.
Yeah.
Have you gone?
I have not. I've realized when I was in Nashville, it was a little too far for just a quick trip, and you don't want you want to be able to enjoy the sights and check out some spots. But no,
it's Miami. It's Miami. Yeah, it's Miami to like Orlando. It's kind of like that kind of a drive. It's like a 3 hour.
Yeah, about 3 hour drive. So, but Nashville was wonderful. For someone that has lived in both South Florida and now Nashville, what's one of the biggest differences musically, just between the two, that you kind of can pick out without any hesitation?
Community. It's a small pond in Florida, or it was when back in the heyday. It was large to us, but relative to Nashville, it's just on steroids here. It's just all music, and it's not just country. There's some great stuff coming out of here in a lot of different genres, because it's supported. It's just absolutely supported.
I think to a degree, I get obviously country music is big in Nashville, of course, but when I was there and I went to a lot of the local record stores like Grimey's and there was another place that was like a large used store. Oh my goodness, it's escaping me. It was something the Escape. I forget the first part of it. They had like multiple stores, but it's called The Great Escape. I just remember when I went in some of these shops, like they had a section of like, your Elvis and your country and that sort of thing, but that was like so small compared to all the other stuff that they had. So it's kind of like this false illusion that I had, like I was going to be all this country music and that's going to be pretty much it. But it was like, that was like just a small portion of what they kind of had.
Music here in general, to be an artist, and it just happens to be Nashville is all about country music and has a huge roots here, obviously, and it's Mother Church is here, and the Grand Ole Opry, and just a ton of history of country music, which is all great. But what's cool about Nashville is that all music is supported. If you're an artist and you are a songwriter, or you do this kind of music, you do that kind of music, it's cool. It's like you aren't looked at like you got the plague. You are supported. You are. Right. You're not just doing a hobby. You are doing something because you're passionate about it and you want to take it to somewhere else.
Right.
So people get it and they understand it here. They just get it.
And are you working on any kind of new music? Anything to expect in the near future?
Yeah, I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do it yet, because one of the crazy things about co-writing is like I haven't been writing really for myself. So it's kind of disjointed as far as like the styles of songs that I've been writing, which is cool in a way, and not so cool in a way if you want to do anything cohesive. But these days it doesn't matter. You can pretty much just put out singles and then figure it out later if you want. But to answer your question is the long way around. Yeah, absolutely. Jack and I have been working on a bunch of stuff. I just haven't really got my arms around how I'm going to release it yet. So stay tuned.
Yeah. It would be nice to, obviously I'm a fan of physical formats, and especially, I know it's, a little more expensive to produce in that sense. But I think honestly, the only stuff of yours that ever made it to vinyl, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, was the tribute stuff that you did or that Y&T put out. I think that's the only music that you ever recorded that was actually pressed on vinyl.
There is a big movement to get the major labels to start up their plants again and help out, because the wait to make a vinyl record, to get your vinyl pressed, is, I don't really know the actual numbers. I know it's a really long time. So if you are on an agenda as far as like putting out a record, there's a lot of prep that goes into that. There's a timeline, and there's the release, right? So if you're waiting around to get that record, you finally get it recorded, right? Then you got to wait for the vinyl to put it out. It really could use some help with some of these major labels to put the plug in, turn the machines on and help us out here, because they can't deny that there's a market for it. They just can't.
Yeah. I know the first 7-inch released on my label has been taking almost a year now. And, I think, and I haven't plugged it in a long time, so I might as well just mention it now since we're on that topic. I think it's like July is the new month that it's supposed to come back. I have the test pressings. Everything's been done. It's just getting the actual finished product for distribution. So I don't know if you know.
So tell me about it. Tell me about this.
I don't know if you know. So it's two bands.
Okay.
one really wasn't a band. It was more like a little project, little maybe for fun. Did you know Dan Bonebreak?
Name sounds familiar. Help me out.
So I would say out of all the, he's been in a lot of bands. So I would say out of all the bands he has been played with, probably the most well-known popularity wise was the early Dashboard Confessional with Chris Carrabba. So he played on some of that stuff. And, but it was him, Addison Burns, who was in Quit.
Wow, right on.
And then the other side is a longtime punk band from Margate, the Shakers. So, but both songs were, well, the Dan song was never released before, period. It was just on Bandcamp, and the Shakers was released on some kind of CD promo. So, but both songs were never on vinyl. So I was putting out both of those songs, and so it's a long process, and you have to go overseas because there's just not enough plants in the United States to. It would probably take probably double the time.
Yeah, so you get it, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Exciting. How fun for you. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. So, well, however you decide to release your music, I think the most important thing I think for music fans is hearing it. so whatever medium you decide on, just getting a chance to hear it, I think is really wonderful. And it's just been great having you on today to chat.
I'm super grateful. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And if I've forgotten to mention anyone in this whole hour long, there's really not enough time in the world to really acknowledge everyone that's been there along the way. And I feel really super fortunate and grateful for having the opportunity to continue with my music for all these years. And I give all credit to all the people that have supported me through all the years, and thank them all very much. And if I've forgotten anybody, I apologize. I love you.
I know it's not always easy to remember every little detail.
Oh my God, no.
Go back so far, but
that takes another 5. I mean, it's hard enough to talk about yourself for a whole hour, much less long. I know I've forgotten so many things, and there's many more stories, but another time.
Well, I appreciate the time today, Diane, and looking forward to sharing this interview with everyone. And it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thanks so much, Jeff. You'll have a great one. All right.
You too. Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome.